This is the Healthy Business Podcast, the show for ambitious business owners who want to grow and scale in a healthy way. I'm Sarah Cook, and I'll be sharing with you tips, inspiration, and proven methods from leading business experts, entrepreneurs, and health and wellness professionals to help you grow your business with more income and having more impact, but in a way that works for you. Because when you have clarity and strategy, you can achieve the results you want. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Healthy Business Podcast. I'm Sarah Cook and I'm joined by the wonderful Helen Butler today. And I'm super excited because we are going to be talking all things scaling without sacrifice, how you can really supercharge your efficiency, have the real core foundations to run your business so that it can scale without having any negative impact on you or the business. So I'm so excited for this. It's such a brilliant conversation to have. Helen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Oh, I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. I think it's going to be a really lovely conversation. And knowing your experience, you've come into my mastermind and done a session for me before, and it's had such great feedback. So I wanted to bring you onto the show so we can get your zone of genius out into the wider world and really help support people who are navigating systems and people and processes and all the things that come up when we're growing and scaling our business. But before we get into that, there's a question that I ask all of my audience or all of my guest experts when they come into my audience is, what does a healthy business mean to you? And I'd love your take on this, knowing your experience.
It's a really interesting one. So I've got there's two parts to it for me, which probably aren't going to be any surprise. For me, healthy business, initially, it's around a business that is working, it's profitable, it's actually doing what it needs to do. There are so many options, or so many people that I speak to where actually they're spending so much time in their business and they're doing a lot of things, but actually when you get underneath it and you start looking at it, they're not really making a profit. It's not giving them a lifestyle that they wanted. So in terms of having a healthy business, it's a one that you are getting the output that you want at the level you want it. But alongside that, I think there's no healthy business without a healthy business owner. So we might touch on this as we go through it. So I spent 20 years in corporate, and I would probably say for quite a large proportion of that, when I look back on it, it didn't ever feel right. I felt like I was always sort of running around, always felt a little bit like there was a lot to do, and the hours that I was putting in, and it never really felt healthy. And I think when it comes to being a business owner, I think we can also spend a lot of hours focusing, doing a lot of things, and actually we do it in the wrong way. So we start to burn out. And I think we can see it quite often. So I think healthy business means profitability, but it also means a healthy business owner who also has the ability to have self-care and things like that. And I know when I was checking, I'm loving your feed at the minute on your social media because you were going to so many spas. It's like, I absolutely love spas. And I love the fact that it picks up. And I think it's right. I think we should definitely be promoting the two parts of it. It's about, work hard, but take that time for self-care as well.
It's investing in yourself, isn't it? As the business owner, you are your biggest asset. And that's a real key thing for me. And it's one of the reasons that I wrote my book, Healthy You, Wealthy Business, is that you have to be that person that is supercharging your success. And if you're not in that space, whether it's mentally or physically or emotionally, there is something that's going to cause a block in how your business grows. And, I know we have very similar thoughts on this around, you're an NLP coach and master practitioner with that. And I bring in a lot of the kind of, the sort of sporting high performance as well as positive psychology as well. And it's so important. But one of the things that I see so many business owners kind of, I suppose, making the mistake of, I'm going to be quite frank about that, is that they're pushing so hard to achieve the results or the results they think they should be achieving. And as you say, they're hitting burnout, or, something comes up, they get sick and they have to take time out of their business, which effectively causes their business to halt.
Yeah.
And that's not what I want. I'm really passionate about helping people grow a business that actually, as you said earlier, supports the life that they want to live. Like it's all part of life, isn't it? It's not about work versus life. Work is part of our lives and we want to enjoy it. We want it to fuel the things outside of work that we want to do. And that's why I invest my time and some of my money in looking after myself and, having those spa days, having that time out, because it is so important. It doesn't have to be a big spa day or anything like that. It can be the everyday, the smaller things, but it is that regular self-care that I think is so important that so many people miss.
It is. And I think part of why I do what I do, so obviously, yes, NLP coach, master practitioner, I love all of that side of things. But the main part of what I look at is efficiency. It's how can you do more in your business by doing less? And actually, that's the whole aim, isn't it? For a business owner to be able to achieve what they want to achieve in their business by doing less and working smarter. There's a lot of conversations that people have, and I still think it happens. It certainly happened more in sort of like the general sort of corporate world. I do hear it in businesses where people sometimes wear hours like a badge of honor.
Yes.
And it's the amount of hours that they've worked, and it's been, a 60-hour week. It's, and almost talking about it as if that's an expectation. And for me to be a business owner and to really show that I'm doing everything, I'm having to work long hours. And what I like to do is to then go and have a conversation and say, well, let's have a look at how you're doing things, because maybe you could achieve the same. Do it with less hours. And actually, you've got to allow yourself permission to say that you can work less hours, because I think there's still a piece where people believe they need to work long hours to show that they're doing the right thing. So there's definitely a mindset change.
It was one of the hardest things I found when I left the corporate world and started my own business, was that I felt that I needed to be working during the hours of kind of 9 till 5, 9 till 6. And I'm like, this is why I left that space, so that I had that flexibility and had that choice. And we're just ingrained into us from such a young age, isn't it, about working harder, and the results will come, rather than going, well, is there a different way? Is there a better way? Is there a more efficient way of doing this? And you cover all different areas around this, don't you? So I know you have your kind of key pillars. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about these.
Yeah. So the way I sort of work is around looking at what are the core foundations of a business. Because what I found was there are certainly 4 areas that, if these aren't looked at, the kind of the things that will then cause a business to not run very smoothly, or start to make things feel difficult, complicated. So the 4 P's that I work with my clients on. So the first one's planning. So it's about making sure that actually there's clarity, there's direction. Where is it you're heading? I think one of the things I often say is, decisions are a lot easier to make if you know what you're trying to achieve. And quite often where I see people spend and I guess wasting a lot of time in their business is constantly being in a position where they've got to make a decision and they're not sure what decision to make. And then they're sort of spending time weighing things up. But actually, if you're really, really clear on what you want to achieve, that's kind of almost done for you. So I use an example sometimes. I think last week I was talking to somebody about it. I had a networking event at 7:00 one day last week, and I'm training for a half marathon. So when my alarm went off at 5:00 that morning, and it was like, right, do I stay in bed for an extra hour, or do I get up and I go for a run? Actually, the fact that I know I've got a training plan and I'm aiming towards that run, the decision was almost made. So yes, I still had that, do I stay in bed, do I not? But I knew what I wanted to achieve in 3 months' time, and therefore I needed to get up and do it. And I think having that in business is really important. So a lot of people, I think, they hear about planning, but I think they also think, I can get away with it not doing it if I don't want to. But I think it actually simplifies a lot of everything else once you've done it. So planning is the first one. The second one is process. So again, everything we do in a business is a process. And a lot of the time we talk about, I think people look at processes as, the steps. What are the steps you do in the activity? And that's really important, but it's also about being clear on what's it meant to be achieving. I think a lot of times we start to talk about processes and just kind of say, this is what we need to do, but we need to make sure that it's achieving a particular outcome, because what you want to do is, when you start to bring people into your business, as you start to scale, you want to make sure that if anybody does that process, they're all going to get the same output. So it's looking at it in a slightly different way. So process is really important, and that goes right from even just getting an idea of what you're doing and what those processes are, right the way through to working with some clients who might have been around 5, 6, 7 years, and they've got processes, but actually it's about making them slicker and better and actually getting into the detail and starting to, remove things and look at things in a different way. So there's a whole, raft of from different areas of where you can look at it, but process is really, really important, and certainly from a scaling with simplicity, that's a really core element. People is the third one, and I think if any, I think this is the one where people get the most stuck, and I say stuck more from a mindset perspective than anything else. So this is looking at actually, who do you need in your business, or what roles do you need covered in your business? What skill set? How do you make sure that, that you hire the right people? How do you make sure once you've hired them that they're actually doing the work that you wanted them to do?
Yeah.
And the reason I think this is the biggest area of challenge is we've all set up our businesses and they're our babies and we've grown them to a certain point. And it's really, really scary to start thinking of handing the reins over to somebody else. One, because let's be honest, we don't think anybody else can do it as good as we can.
Yeah.
I think it's the first one. We want to feel like someone else can, but it's a big bit of trust. It's, do they really have the skills? We hold on to it for quite a while. And for people who've never been in roles where they've managed people, it's a brand new skill set.
Yeah.
And there's all these different elements that you've got to do. So it brings up a lot of challenges. However, there are ways to do it. There's ways to make it easier, but it's definitely the one that I think a lot of business owners find the biggest challenge out of the four that I talk through. And then the fourth one is performance. So for all of the things I've just mentioned, the planning, the process, the people, there's an element of being able to track and measure actually how are things performing, how are they working. So you've set a plan. How are you tracking against it? Are you on track? Are you off track? What actions do you need to kind of get yourself heading in the right direction again? Process. You can do a process, but again, if it's not getting you where you want to be, it's not working. You have to change it. So again, there's an element of needing to make sure we track the performance of processes, and we need to make sure that we track the performance of people. And I say that I sort of sometimes feel a bit is it people? I guess it is, but it's more about tracking performance of the role. So you've asked somebody to come into your business for a particular reason. What is it you expected that role to do for your business? And is it delivering?
Yeah. And it's hard, isn't it, with people, especially when, maybe you're a kind of a solo business owner and you bring someone in to support you, whether it's a VA or tech support or whatever. And you start, because it's just the two of you, or maybe 3, 4, whatever, however size, you are that small team. You are each other's sounding boards and things as well. And you want them to be invested in your business to get the results, to achieve the goals that you're looking for. But sometimes that relationship can change, can't it? Of kind of being that. And I guess I kind of, I'm saying this because this is one thing I hear so many times with clients of, they've started working with a new VA and then something's happened and they haven't delivered. And then they feel that, they need to change that VA or get some different support. And I love that reframe of actually, it's not the person, it's the role. And are you setting that role up in the right way? Is it actually the role that you're getting the right person in for that role? And, and having that, tracking that performance piece, it's not tracking that person, because then you take away the emotion from it, don't you? And you're actually like, right, okay, let's just put this in place. What are the not performance metrics of you as a person, but actually, is this role delivering in the way it should be? And I think that's a real key differentiator. I love that.
It's because it's the tricky one, and a lot of conversations I have with clients is around the kind of almost resistance to having difficult conversations.
Yeah.
So it's something that comes up time and time again, and I understand it. And it's because we do have an emotional sort of pull, and it feels awkward and icky, and you don't want to upset anyone, but you want your business to work, and it just feels really, really hard. But it is the role. You didn't go and look at somebody on the street and go, oh, I want that person to come and work in my business. And you went and picked a person.
Yeah.
Came up with the need for something. You found there was something you needed in your business to be done, and you created a role around it, and you've brought someone in to do it. So actually, you know what you want the output to be of that role. So it's fine to track it, because it's there for a reason. Otherwise, you wouldn't commit money to pay for somebody to do that. And I think if we start to look at it from a role performance perspective, it does make it a bit easier.
Yeah.
But I think it's also really important that and it was something that I talked through when we did the session in your group, when you've decided what that role is and you know what that success is for the role, be clear about how you can measure it, and make sure that the person who's doing the role understands it and they know that role is going to get tracked that way, because actually it gives them a bit of ownership and accountability. And sometimes that is a big challenge as well.
And that's really important, just picking up on that as well, is that the reason you've got someone in is to give you support. You don't want to be constantly on their back or checking in with them. Like, you want to give them that ownership to release that time, to release that sort of bottleneck of pressure from your side. So you don't want to have to be in it all the time either, do you?
No, not at all. And again, it's the reason why people is such a common conversation is, again, that's a really common discussion that I have with people, which is, I brought somebody in to free up my time, but I'm now just spending that time speaking to them, answering their questions, making decisions for them. So it's really important that you can be really clear with them up front around what they own, what they need to deliver, where they have permission to make decisions themselves, what they must come to you for, but what they can go make the decisions themselves for, because you do need to make sure that you are getting that time freed up and that you're empowering them to take that forward.
Yeah. It's part of that kind of job satisfaction, isn't it? Like, both of us have come from corporate, and, I remember those managers that were always on you or always wanted to be part of everything. You're like, I just want to be able to do this on my own. Like, trust me to do this. And it's almost that role reversal, isn't it? If you've never managed anyone, of kind of going, okay, let's look at this from their perspective just as much as it is from our perspective, and needing that support.
Yeah. And it's and again, bringing it back to that conversation around scaling with simplicity, we need capacity in the business to be able to scale, and capacity generally comes with having people who can then take on some of that work. So we need to get good at the people bit. We need to get comfortable with what they're doing, how we can make sure that it continues and that they're doing the role that we want, because actually that is the part that enables them to feel empowered to do the day-to-day, to do the work, for you to then step back. So it's a really, really important one. It can be challenging, but there's ways to do it. And, I'm sure if some of it is trial and error, nobody's going to get it right first time. I think some people need to give themselves a little bit of a acceptance. You're not going to need a VA, hire a VA, and the first one you hire is going to be the perfect one. But there's ways to support that so that it can at least be a little bit easier. But you will learn as you progress.
Yeah, definitely. And all four of those different areas so neatly dovetail into each other, because you need all of those aspects, don't you? There's not one that's sort of more important than the other, but I know most people focus on that kind of people place because they feel that that's that first bit to outsource. Like, they're busy, they're juggling things, that overwhelm comes in, and then it's like, right, okay, I need some support. But actually having those processes in place will help will help you when you're outsourcing or when you're getting support in as well, just as much as having a clear plan. I love that phrase that you said of a decision is easier to make if you know what you want to achieve from it. And that comes from that planning piece of just really having a clear idea on your goals. Like, what are you doing it for? And knowing that is so important. We've talked a lot about kind of people there. How do people kind of map things out from a process perspective? Because, we were saying from a kind of, yes, it's a step-by-step perspective, but actually it's so much more than that. Yeah.
So processes, I think if somebody's not really thought about processes before, it sometimes can feel a bit difficult to start looking at it. Ultimately, the way I would explain it is, we have a load of activities that we do in our business, and those activities, there'll be a group of them where they've got a start and finish, and there's some activities that we do in between. So ultimately a process is that there's a start, a finish, we've got some tasks in the middle, and it gives us an output. That's it in its simplest form. For people who've never looked at it, never thought about it, one of the ways that I get people to start looking at it is maybe splitting it down in even just a couple of areas. So list down all the activities that you do, and actually they'll probably split into those that generate revenue and those that don't. The ones that generate the revenue, make a list of them. They're probably the best ones to start with, because if somebody needs to come in and help you, it's typically that you can get them supporting in that area. So that's all around your customer journey. And actually just there's two ways. And the reason I'm sort of wondering which one to go down. So there's a one that I've done previously, which is, pick one thing that you do and just make some, write it down on a piece of paper. What are the different steps of things that you do? Where do you need to go to? What tools do you need? And just kind of keep that on a piece of paper and work it through. The reason why it's quite good on a piece of paper is it allows you to sometimes question as you're working through it. Is there anything in there that actually feels a bit redundant, or are you duplicating any steps, or is there anything there that you're having to wait around for something? It starts to kind of highlight some of the things, because often when we do things just heads, we get on with it, we probably don't think about the steps that we are taking. But when you get it on a piece of paper and you can see it and it's visual, you can maybe start to look at it and go, oh, actually, well, I'm doing that twice. Why don't I do that at the same time? And I can save some time. So it's good to get it on paper if you want to start looking at the real efficiency. What I recommend really early stages is actually just record what you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you are, it might be how you're raising an invoice. It might be how you're, even packing a delivery if you have a physical product and you're sending it out. If there's any way for you to record yourself doing that using a video, there's a lot of screen capture tools. I think just capture what you currently do, because actually you can then spend some time, you can look at it. It also means that if anybody does come into the business, you've just got something there that they could watch. So it's about what are you currently doing, and that's the starting point. I have previously probably learned a lesson maybe about 3 years ago, where I started going into a lot of detail with people about saying, let's map out your process and start making it, how can we make it really fancy and really streamlined? And actually, the starting point is just knowing what you're currently doing. Yeah. Really basic. So capture it the best way you can. You can then start to spend a bit of time to question, how am I doing it? Am I duplicating anything? Is there anything that just seems like it's a bit of a waste? But you can also do that when you bring somebody on. So you can just record what you currently do. And when you do bring a VA or whoever it is that you bring into your business, actually one of their first tasks could be to review a process and get them to start looking at where they think there could be some improvements, some efficiencies. But you've done your bit. You've captured what it is that you're doing, and you allow them to have a look at it and see if they can improve it in any way.
And that's that empowerment piece as well, I think, isn't it? Of bringing them in and saying, I love your support, but how can we do things better? Because generally you're bringing them in because their expertise is in that area. Yeah. So, and it's the same with anything, isn't it? There is no cookie cutter approach. There are always lots of different ways of doing things, but finding the way that is the most efficient for you and how you want to run your business and that feels most aligned is going to be the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background when I was in corporate, so I've done a lot around Lean, Six Sigma. So I've spent a lot of time around processes, and it is around the efficiency. And ultimately, what you do want to get to with a process is, you want to get from the start to the finish in the least amount of time and the least amount of steps. The biggest part is making sure that actually it adds value.
Yeah.
So there's always that question that you should have is when you're looking at your processes, is this adding value? And a lot of the conversations and work that I do, certainly with some of the bigger businesses, is that over time processes have just grown and things have started to happen. But actually, when you start looking at them and strip them back, when you're asking the question, is this adding value? And by value, I mean to the end customer.
Yeah.
Like, is this something that has to happen? And if not, you should be questioning whether or not you're doing it. I think
it's such a great catch for people as they're growing and scaling, because we do what we've always done and we're not very good at, because we're so busy on focusing on that next step or growing our business. We just keep on doing what we always have done. And whilst that's been working up until now, it might not be working for you in the best way going forward and as you grow and scale. Something that I've been doing a lot of in the last 12 months is really looking at not just my processes, but also my business model, like what's the most efficient way of doing things. And do I still feel aligned to all of these things? And if I don't, then what needs to change? But I think when we first start up running our own businesses, we are holding all of those different hats, and we are every single different department of a business, and we don't need to be as we grow and scale. In fact, we shouldn't be. We should really be kind of pulling back from some of those things and focusing on your zone of genius, which means that you then have to have those efficiencies if you are passing them out to other people as well.
Yeah, because we don't want to be paying, you don't want to pay for somebody's time if actually their time is filled doing processes that has non-value added work in it.
Yeah.
What you want to do is to have it in the right, as streamlined and as efficient as possible. And then you're getting somebody to you're paying somebody to do that. So the sooner that you can start to look at processes and try to get them streamlined and understand what they are in your business, you are in a much better position. Because the worst possible thing you could be doing is to pay for somebody to do work that's inefficient.
Yeah. And it's part of that scaling as well as the profitability side that you were talking about right at the beginning. Saving time, saving cash that doesn't need to be spent. That's all profit. Like it's all going to be going back into your business, which is amazing.
And I think this is, what I talk about, that they are the core foundations, like they're the real core foundations of a business. And they do sometimes sound too simplistic. It's the planning, it's the processes, the people, performance. But they have such a massive, massive impact on how easy it is to scale or how sustainably you can scale. Because a lot of people can scale, let's be honest, but you can then scale either too fast or with rocky foundations, and it doesn't last. And that's the challenge. I've worked with a few businesses where they've scaled, up to 18 staff members, over 7 figures. But actually, they didn't have any of the foundations, and it's had to be really scaled back. There was no profit, and you're putting a lot of effort and hard work into something. So what I recommend and what I try and support people to do is let's just get these foundations firstly understood, but secondly, let's try and just get them into your business as soon as possible, because it will make that scaling journey so much simpler.
Absolutely. If someone's listening to this and thinking, this all makes complete sense, and I have none of any of these foundations in place at the moment.
Yeah.
Let's take it right back to the basic level. Where should people start? Like, what's your sort of primary core pillar out of those 4 that you would recommend people sort of spending time on sorting out, first of all?
Interesting one. It's an interesting one. And the reason I say that is it's between planning and process. So the reason I say planning for me is it's just the fundamental starting blocks, because you need to know where you're headed to know whether or not the processes you're doing are right.
Yeah.
So in that respect, I would probably say planning and getting really, really clear on what that overall vision is, what the goal is, what's that business model, how are you looking to achieve and get to the destination that you've set. So I think, perfect opportunity. We're coming into, January 2023. A lot of people are starting to look at the year ahead. So I think it's about having that clarity of where is it you want to get to. And I think it's built up of 3 things. First of all, it's the personal why. I think everybody, before they start looking at their business plans, need to have a look at their personal vision. So what is it you want? What's your values? Why is, what's important to you? Because you need to build that business in a way that's going to support the personal values. If you don't, I think lots of people find it really sticky and they never quite work out why. It just feels really hard, but it needs to be aligned to personal values. And then once, they're clear on that, it's about looking at what type of business, what are the revenue targets, what kind of products, where are your customers, and getting real clarity on, even if it's just 12 months ahead. Some people will do 5-year visions, some people will do 3-year, and I think they've got a place in certain businesses. But I think if you've never started before and you've not really done any planning, get your 12 months set for 2023 and break that down. So have a look at what that means quarterly, and actually then start having a look at what does that mean week on week. What do I need to be looking at? Because again, it takes away a lot of the questions. If you've already worked it backwards and you're looking at, what do I need to have achieved every week? it just helps to guide, and it's more informed in terms of how people can progress. And those plans then inform everything else. Depending on where you want to get to, are you going to have to hire some people to be able to get to that? What processes or what is it you're going to need to be doing to get to achieve your goal? And once you've got your plan, you need then a way to track it and make sure you're doing it. So they all entwine, but it's got to start with planning.
Absolutely. I love it. And I think it's a perfect time of year to be talking about this, where, we're coming into January, we've got the whole year, blank canvas, stretching out ahead of us. That can seem quite scary though, as well, where we're like, oh my goodness, I've got this whole year. How on earth do I break it down? And I think that is the key though. If you know what you're aiming for, then you can start reverse engineering and breaking things backwards and going, okay, well, so by half year point, I want to have hit, if it's looking at financial, I want to have hit X, figures. And then you break that down. Okay, well, if I'm doing that in the first half, what do I need to have hit by the first quarter? And that's end of March. And, I see so many people that kind of wait until end of February and then go, oh, it's fine, I'm okay. But you're a third of the way through the first quarter then. And that, whilst that's still okay, you've got a whole year pretty much ahead of you. You want to be on track of it. Like, you don't want to wait until September, October time and go, oh, well, I had this big goal and now suddenly, how am I going to do this in the last couple of months? And it's, you don't need to do that. You don't need to give yourself that extra pressure. But I think also I love that idea of having that check-in as well. Something that I recommend all of my clients do is have that at a minimum, a quarterly check-in. Like, are you on track with your financial goals and your lifestyle goals, and how are they impacting each other? Because, if you're running your business so hard and you're not having any time for your family or your life, then that's still not a good thing. Like, that's not scaling with simplicity or with ease. You have to have the balance between the two, or at least everything that you're wanting to do. And, having that, if you don't have that check-in, you're either going to get burnt out, or you're going to get to the end of the year and be like, oh, I haven't got those holidays booked in. I need to do this, or I need to do that. It's just, I think it's so much of it does come from just being really objective on that planning. And it might sound very structured when you want flexibility and you want freedom, which is what I know so many people do within their business. But that comes from structure. Like, I love that we, and I know we're quite similar on this one, and we love having that sort of structure. Structure doesn't have to be rigid. I think people see sometimes the structure being super rigid. Like, you're the CEO of your business. You get to choose and call the shots, and you can flex things how you want to. But having that plan and then knowing what resources you need to achieve that plan, that goal, as well as the processes, as well as, having those measures, those checks of performance is so valuable as you're scaling.
It is. There's a couple of things. I think one, I would say, if people take anything away from conversation around planning, is that the planning itself is really important, but there must be those check-ins.
Yeah.
And it's a bit I think people forget a lot.
Yeah.
So set the plan and everyone's really, excited. It's beginning of the year, let's set the plan. And then they get forgotten and people move on. But actually book in, even if it's quarterly or if it's monthly, book in 30 minutes or, an hour where you as the CEO are sitting down and you are reviewing where are you at, where you're going, what needs to be changed. And actually that's going to give you more of an opportunity to be successful, because the sooner you can identify if things are starting to go a bit off track, you can then start to put some things in place to do it. And one of the analogies that I talk about, especially when people mention, we like to just decide and go with our gut instinct and things like that, and not be as structured. I don't know. I think if, for example, you were going on a hike, and I've used this analogy loads, but if you were going to go on a hike, and I love going to the Lake District, and I think you like going to the lakes. I love going hiking in the lakes. I will never just rock up somewhere in the lakes in my flip-flops and shorts and t-shirt and just decide to go for a walk. Like, if I'm going to go to the lakes, I need to go, right, which walk am I going to do? What's the terrain like? What's the weather going to be like? Because actually that, how long is it going to take? How many snacks and how much water do I need? What clothes do I need? Everything we do, we know what we want to do, and it helps to make the right choices, and it gets us the right questions, and your business is no different. So, to make a decision around where you want to go and what that path is going to be, it just helps you ask the right questions and helps you make, the navigation of it so much easier.
It's being intentional, I think, isn't it? And just, yeah, I love kind of working from an intuition and a gut perspective, and you have to feel that. But there is definitely a need for that structure in those questions and really taking accountability of the performance of your business. Like if you are taking your business seriously and you want it to be successful, doing it on a whim is not going to get the success that you're wanting to do. And there was a great phrase that I heard the other day of your action has to meet your ambition. And I think that doesn't have to mean rigidity and, real sort of hard stuck ways. Like you still get to call the shots and you do it in a way that you want to. But I love that example of going to the lakes. Yeah, it's such unpredictable weather that you need to check, right?
Depending whether it's north or south or, like just even a couple of days different, could be such different weather. And it's just understanding it. And I think, I think of it more as, structuring your business is there to help you remove the firefighting mode.
Yes.
And by removing the firefighting mode, you free up time to be more creative and to have more time to think about what it is you're wanting to do. So instead of thinking one is taking the other away, it's about enabling you to free up time to do the bit that you really love doing.
I love that. That feels like a brilliant place to wrap up as well, of just really summarizing that it enables you to do more. It enables you to have more flow, to enjoy it more as well. Thank you so much for being part of the show. I've loved having our conversation. Hopefully you listeners have enjoyed it as well, and it's given you a little bit of food for thought on how you can really successfully grow your business and scale it, but without having that overwhelm, without hitting that burnout wall, but really understanding those 4 key pillars to be able to scale and supercharge and get those results that you're looking for. Helen, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Healthy Business Podcast, and wishing everyone a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for listening, and I will see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Healthy Business Podcast. To get your free checklist with 1-minute hacks to accelerate your business and find out more about our community, head to my website, sarahcookmarketing.com/healthy business.